Hello, welcome. We are so happy to have you with us today. My name is Susie, and
I'm Monifa Harris. So I am so excited to welcome y'all to our first episode of Verve and Vision. Yeah, we had this amazing idea last year. And we're like, we're so good together. I know.
you know what the world needs? The world needs more of us.
That's exactly right. Uh, and yeah, so we have so many things that we have in common. We love helping people become their best selves in different ways, but it all comes down to essentially being the healthiest versions and the full expressions of us, right? So they're like, let's do this and let's do a podcast about why we are in the perfect time of our lives to be able to do so. Right, Susie?
Yes, 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 yes. Maybe before we dive in, let's let people know who we are in case they are new to us. On YouTube, you're going to be finding Verve and Vision, Sovereign Spirits Mastering Midlife, on the amazing channel with other content created by Monifa Harris. So you can find us on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook on our respective business pages. So my name is Susie Vine. I am a stress buster. I am an advocate for transforming your relationship with stress so you can feel more empowered in how you show up to reclaim your health, your happiness, and design a life that you're going to love stepping into. And on Facebook, you will find me on the business page 3X Less Stress, because I help people look at those three aspects of stress: physical, emotional, and environmental, and find out how we can turn down the volume so we can boost our resilience. And so, Monifa, tell us a little bit about you and what you are creating in the world.
Yes, I am Monifa Harris. I am the founder of Vocal Alchemy and Impact Online Voice Studio. So essentially, I help people to live in their full self expression through accessing the power of their voice and having that natural alignment and congruence so that you can really make an impact every time you share your voice with the world. So yeah, so I do that through energy, I do that through voice, and I do that through understanding our cycles and patterns, which is where Susie and I really vibe. Recognizing those habits, you know.
Yes, yes. It takes a lot of self-examination, right? To create change, whether you're looking for better health, whether you're just wishing you felt more positive more of the time without falling into toxic positivity. I'm sure that will come up at some point during our trajectory, perhaps not today. But whether you're just feeling like you're not fully expressed and strong enough to shine your light in the world, because we need your light right now in the world. So that's
So
what we're really
true.
lit up about: inspiring other people to do and to claim that strength, that visibility in this phase of life where we find ourselves, where many fabulous, phenomenal, powerful women find ourselves, this midlife area where traditionally, maybe historically, women have started to kind of step back, fade away. I think primarily simply be overlooked in our society, which has been traditionally driven by masculine standards and expectations. And so we are reclaiming that. We are redefining what midlife looks like. And that's what really inspired us to start this show together.
Absolutely. It is actually the prime of our lives. And I feel like we are have taken on a little bit of the story of our mothers and decided that we were going to be overlooked the same way that our mothers were overlooked. I'm hearing a lot of this conversation amongst my peers and my clients, and I just don't agree. We're going to talk about all the ways in which that is not true, and which is this is the perfect time to claim your space and speak your mind, because that's exactly what the world needs now, right? So that's what we're here to do. We are even looking to kind of invite you into deep wisdom and esoteric knowledge, because that's where we are highlighting ourselves and our power, is that we have wisdom. We have wisdom from our experiences, we have wisdom from doing what's necessary within our families and our relationship dynamics, and we can really help people to connect in true, real ways so they feel seen and heard. And that's what the world needs now, because right now we're just doing a lot of artificial connections, which we'll talk about too. I'm sure that'll come up. I'm just sure that these things will come up over the course of the conversation.
And we do
I
want this to
can't
be a
get around it.
conversation. Let me share our banner. If you are catching us live, if you happen to come across us while we are streaming this show, we are on YouTube. Like I said, we are on Facebook, on Monifa's business page, Monifa Harris Business or Vocal Coach, Voice Coach. Sorry, and on 3x Less Stress. If you give
Yes.
StreamYard permission to see your comments, then we can see your comments and we can make this a conversation. But leave a comment if you're catching the replay so we can continue this, because we do want to create a dialogue here. We really want to create a community of people who are inspired by this vision.
Yeah, that's Cyber Live.
Exactly, exactly, and
Yeah.
yeah, really making the most of this time and not stepping aside, not discounting the cumulative wisdom that we have gained reaching this point in our lives, personally, professionally. Whether you have been immersed in raising a family, whether you have been devoted to a career, whether you've been doing that balancing act, wherever you are, as in relation to where you might wish you were at this stage, we want to inspire you to celebrate everything you have integrated and brought into your body of knowledge to this point, and really recognize how much inherent worth you have. You don't need to wait. You don't need to do more. Just bring your beautiful self to the conversation. So, a couple
Yes,
of things
yes, and
that
we do. Like when we're all together and we're sharing our wisdom. Oh, we had a little gap there.
there we go.
So yeah, go ahead, Susie. A couple of things.
Oh no, I was just gonna say a couple of things that we want to explore in the program. Throughout the course of the show, as you keep coming back to Verve and Vision, we're going to be diving more into our four pillars, our Woe Manifesto, if you will, and what it takes, where we really see that we can be fortifying ourselves and having that strong foundation so that we have that confidence and ability to show up in the world the way that best benefits us and the people around us.
Yes. Yes. I mean, because, yeah, we feel like these are the central points in which we can understand and start to walk forward, whether that means doing more support and work for ourselves to get ourselves to the level where we feel vibrantly available to show up for others, but also the things that are the dynamics that are necessary for us to shift so we're not living in that pattern of what happened in the past, right? So the way women were speaking and being represented in the past, that's the big shift, which is one of the reasons why we have brought on the highly, highly, I don't know, vivifying, if nothing else, book, Unbound, The Woman's Guide to Power. So that's coming up in a second. Let me tell you a little bit about this because I just want you to be as excited as I am about what's coming. This is an amazing woman. Kazia Urbanayak is her full name. And how she is just a dynamic person. Sorry, I'm looking for my notes and I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. So let me try pressing the right one. So, over the course of 20 years, Kazia Urbanayak was a professional dominatrix and practiced Taoist alchemy at one of the oldest female led monasteries in China, and went on to receive dozens of certifications, including medical Qigong and systemic constellations, before founding the Academy in 2013. So she is this amazing person who is leading women to their own understanding of their power. And so we're going to talk about her book, which is so dynamic. So we weren't just trying to be controversial with our pictures. We're actually trying to kind of represent the archetype of Kasia. We're trying to embody that a little bit. So we'll get deep into that. Like, how do those things match up and what wisdom came from that? Those kind of seemingly opposite things, monasteries and dominatrixes. That's not right,
Right?
but whatever.
And if it has your curiosity piqued, you're definitely going to want to stick around with us and make plans to come back and join us because we're kind of instituting a little bit of a book club. We think that the topics that she brings forward, the new understanding that, dare I say, revolutionizes the way you will view power, is so important for women to recognize, for ourselves, for our daughters, in all the ways that we show up in the world. So there's a lot of really juicy stuff that we're going to dig into as we do a deeper dive in the book. We're going to take a look at it today, but we're also going to give folks time to take a look at it themselves so we can come back and really have an in-depth conversation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's exciting. We're gonna do that next week, and we'll do that behind closed doors. You don't need everybody knowing our power strategies. Like, that's for the people in the know. So if you want to join us for that, the book club link will be in the description. So just click on it. If you're not sure that you want to join, that's okay. Just make sure that you know where to find when we're meeting and get the links so that we can meet. It'll be on the front page. You don't have to donate, but if you appreciate us, go ahead and donate as well, because it's going to allow us to keep doing this at the highest level possible for our peeps. And so we are going to keep growing as we have more people willing to join us on this road of understanding ourselves better so that we can be better for others, you know? Yay. So that will be part of how we keep going throughout the year. We're going to pick books and even other podcasts to review, and we get together and talk about our ideas, how we're applying it to our lives, how we can use it as the next step to be even more of what we're here to be in the world. So that's what's the fun about that.
Yes, I'm scrambling to kind of pull up that
Yeah.
link so if you're watching you can take a look at that. So give me just a second.
So she's going to bring that up for you. I'm going to go ahead and get into our pillars. So our first pillar is the dynamics of power of women in midlife. So we talked a little bit about that already. But what I want you to know is that this midlife woman, so to speak, is an archetype within itself. It is when I say archetype, there's a divine representation of that energy and why it's needed in the world. That would be true for any time, but right now it's especially true because we're actually moving into a 20-year cycle by the Chinese calendar. Look at that synchronicity, Susie. We did not plan that either. The Chinese calendar, uh, because that we are entering into period 9, which is also the energetic representation of the woman in midlife. So it's actually anything. This is a secret that only the people that follow our podcast will know. I'm kidding, but I'm sure there's other places to get the information. But this is one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that actually this is the time for women in midlife. If you're talking about them, if you're doing anything to support, help, um, and to highlight women in midlife, you're actually in the way of the energy that's moving on the planet. So, like the Chinese representation is period 9 in their energetic platform. So, like if you think of astrology, it's that, and it's the 180-year cycle in total. And this 20-year period is just for our energetic archetype. So, like, even more reason to be more fully ourselves. And the more that we are, the less that we have those hiccups that happen in our society. When the energy that's needed is lifted, then that's how we can kind of more smoothly shift in these big changes in our cycles, you know? So, how's it going, Susie? I'm like
Oh my
flipping back my
gosh.
screens and forth.
Like, did Mercury go into retrograde? What happened? Here we go. Here we go. There's a little link for you. It's not so easy. If you go to Buy Me a Coffee, if you're new with that website, it's a wonderful way to just kind of tip your hostesses. So it is an option. And as Monifa said, we will share more information there so you can hop on. We'll have a Zoom link. So as she was saying, we can make it a private conversation about the book. And after much struggle, after 4 efforts, I have created a banner. But we'll also come back around and we'll share that in comments on YouTube and Facebook and where folks can find it. So, wanted to
True,
make
true.
that available. Forgive me.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Good job, Susie. I
So,
love it.
thanks.
So, so little things that are awesome. Yes. So our next one is your speciality. So you want to talk about the next pillar of health?
Yes. Sorry, now that my attention is not divided, here we go. Just in time. Health as self love. Like, where do you fall on your own scale of worthiness, of value, of importance? How important is it for you to put an emphasis on what you need to be thriving? We're coming out of the time in our lives when it was a little bit easier to rest on our laurels, to rely on our body's extraordinary ability to heal itself. And now it's becoming a little more important, right? So if your health, your well being is taken a backseat to the pressures of career, raising a family, we are inviting you, we are imploring you to join us in making this a priority. We think it's fundamental that we recognize that as you are recognizing how worthy you are and as you are deepening your self love, which is so important, part of that is giving yourself permission to do what you need to do to fortify your health. And that includes mental, emotional, and physical well being. We really see the comprehensive you. We want you to start embracing how much you are that full magnificence. It's not just physically waking up and feeling refreshed and vitalized in the morning. It's how is your mental clarity? How is your emotional balance? And we'll really dig into that through the course of future episodes, looking at how you can support yourself in those areas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is such a powerful understanding that we are evolving to step into. We took a while to get here. First, we had to realize, oh yeah, we need to love ourselves. Then we had to realize, oh yeah, like health is important. It's part of how we show up, right? If we aren't feeling good, we're not going to be available at the same level for the people that we love and the people that we want to support in the world. So becomes vital in that way. But when we're starting to think about that health as self-love, like if we are also kind of using it as a little bit of a barometer, right? How much time am I spending restoring and loving myself so that I am feeling healthy, right? Feeling vibrant and ready to go in these great projects that we have to save the world. We like that. We like to save the world. And yeah, I
The
and
world likes it too.
we'll talk more about that too.
The world likes it too. The world would be so grateful if we were whole and nourished enough to be able to support her.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and that's really the truth of it is that we often end up doing it whether we feel good or not. So why not feel good and do it, right? Like let's do that, and like it just exponentializes the possibilities of the people that receive it as well, because they're getting our overflow and it's becoming expansive at that point. So yes, more of that,
More of
please.
that, please. Let's tune that compass to more of what makes us feel good, right? That's why we chose to start with Unbound. We're going to be digging into other books that we feel are so important to, to really see potential and inspire ourselves and each other. But yeah, we deserve to feel good, ladies. If you have been putting everybody else's feelings and well being before yours, let us be the ones to plant a flag and inspire you to come along with us and shake things up.
Yay. Third pillar is visibility. We are all for our brilliant, vibrant midlife persons. So this includes all persons who have feminine energy, and even if they are not gender defined. So anybody who feels that there's more of this energy is needed in the world, in that world vision, and in shaping the world, then we need you to show up for your vision. So I think this is vital. I do believe in restoring yourself. So if you do not have the energy, health first. That's why it came before visibility. Health first, then visibility. Get your junk together so that we can see you. We know this is important because that's the only way you can be sustainably visible. Otherwise, we get into health breakdown, and we can't be consistent in our projects, and it doesn't do as well for being impactful, right?
Right. And as Monifa was just saying, and as we will
So,
have more time to dig into and really explore, we are at a real turning point in a lot of different capacities, in different traditions and wisdoms. In the Chinese astrology, Monifa was already talking about this new feminine energy that we are moving into. And in Western astrology, we are moving from a Capricorn era into an Aquarius era where it's all about ideas and collaboration and transformation. And no one said this journey was going to be easy. We didn't get that guarantee on our way out. But we can together hold space for a transformation that really celebrates those feminine qualities and energies that can be healing and nurturing for the world and everyone who's on it. We can reclaim that authority, feminine
yes.
beings, and we it's our cue, right? Like Monifa was saying, this is your cue.
Yeah, this is our cute. Like there's so many different. This year by itself, the Wood Dragon year by itself, is about showing up, starting being you. Like that get going energy. That get going energy. And then with the Aquarius energy, it's past time for us to be uniquely ourselves. Okay, like we've been getting this message for a while. It's like know who you are, support who you are, be who you are, supporting you who you are. So we're getting a lot of the health concepts. So we really are like living into this new possibility. And again, it's about shining, it's about showing up this year. So if you know that that's part of your path, then we got to start that engine, whether that start looks like starting with your restoration in your health, or that start looks like putting together that visionary podcast, right? So yeah, so we're so here to be here for you, to support you. Jump into the comments if you have something that you're already doing. Do you already have a podcast? Have you already started this journey? How is it expanding for you? We're interested. We want to know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we the this is kind of the counter, the stand against the hustle and grind culture that we've all been sold. Building our own businesses as we've been growing and committing to what we're bringing into the world. Monifa, I'm sure you have seen as much as I have the girl boss, the hustle culture, all of that. Grind it out, put in the extra hours, the blood, sweat, and tears up front because it's going to be so worth it in the end. And we are saying we can unsubscribe from that because that is not the only way to get ahead. And in fact, if you
Yeah.
want the lasting satisfaction, the true growth that's sustainable, again, we see above feminine energy, being kind, being gentle to yourself. So what I'm trying to say is we're not saying tackle all of it, solve your health, get visible, make big changes in the world. and do it this month. What we're saying is,
Yeah.
what's relevant for you? Where do you feel supported? And we really want to be a channel where that can be available to you. So as I was saying earlier, please be sure to comment and let us know where you're feeling depleted, where you want to feel supported, because we definitely want to be tuned into that as we are creating content and moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. And as Stasha would say, which is Stasha
You'll hear,
Washburn, you
we'll refer
know,
to her a couple of times.
a few times because she's also an awesome lady on a mission. And as she would say, put down the busy badge of honor. Like nobody needs that anymore. We're not giving you points if you're just busy beyond belief. If it's fulfilling and you're vibrant and you're taking care of yourself, you get all the points. But if you're only busy, we will not give you any points. Like it's not about doing more things, it's about supporting yourself where you're at. And which brings us to our fourth pillar of sovereign authority for conscious leadership. So not just showing up because you have to and it's your responsibility as a midlife woman to bring your energy. Like I don't want that level of pressure to be the impetus of it. And so we're going back to the conscious part, right? Because as a conscious human, we have a better understanding of what it means that leading doesn't necessarily mean that we are sacrificing ourselves for the greater good. It means that we are understanding where we're moving and stepping forward in ways that others don't quite understand yet. And then we are helping them understand so that they can create their own version of what's needed, right? This is how we get off of the overwhelm. I'll do it for you, and therefore, everything's on your shoulders, and you're the only one that can get it done. Moving away from that idea to like a conscious leadership of we all have versions of power, and we're here to help each other live into our version of sovereignty. Yeah. So what does that mean to you, Susie?
Oh, like, does anybody else just like sigh, like shoulders relax, like I don't have to do it all. It's not all on me, right? You get to be that sovereign in your life. You get to decide how much you are putting out there in the world. And I believe that by being softer with yourself, you're going to find that you have that energy that wants to do more, right? Looking for that magnetic kind of connection as opposed to pushing ourselves, forcing ourselves, working day in, day out, right? Monifa just referred to Stasha Washburn. She's amazing in terms of honoring your cycle and your flow. And she's changing the world by teaching other coaches to incorporate that in their practices. And so, if you need to take a week and be kind to yourself and nestle in with a book, well, we've got a great book for you. And when you've got a week that you are knocking everything off your to do list and you're looking for more to do, we want to be able to provide some inspiration there too. But you are the author of your story. You have that personal authority. You get to choose what's right for you. You don't have to come after everything else the way that you have been. No more feminine models of martyrdom and self sacrifice, right? In this era, whether you're looking at the era at large that we collectively are moving into, or simply looking at how you want this chapter of your life to look, we want you to be inspired to reclaim your authority.
Reclamation. We're getting to the excitement moment of talking about the book. So many good things happening. Oh my God. Oh my God. So, Unbound, The Woman's Guide to Power by Kaja Urbanayak. It does take courage just to pick up this book and put it out on social media. Like how long must have been a year and a half, 2 years ago that I read the book. And I was like,
I
about a
think
year and
so.
a half, maybe.
You were like, you have to read this book. And
You
it
have to
took me
read
a
it. You
minute. I
have
was
to
like,
read it.
I don't know if I have to read that book. That seems strange. And then as soon as I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. It is transformational. It is the change that we need to see in the world. And so if you saw our reel, if you caught our video promoting the show, as we were letting our friends know we had a new little thing in the works, we, as Monifa said, we weren't just trying to instigate things, but Kasia really, her own personal story includes following the Taoist traditions and studying in monasteries and around the world for about 20 years. At the same time, she was supporting herself, making a very good living, working as a dominatrix. And those two things might seem to be very, very different. But sometimes you have to go to a really different place, completely outside of the box, to make those magical electrical connections that can really ignite change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even when she talks about her aha moment when she's in the den, I was just like, holy cow, like how do you get there from there? And it's amazing because she's like coming from just having her Taoist exercise of tuning into her energetic consciousness, essentially, because it's an alchemical school or spirituality. And so she's like coming from like being blind while running in the dark, essentially, to avoid things by just sensing them around her, you know. And so she's going from this high level like energetic sensitivity to like this kind of stew of energy in the place of her, like where she goes while she's waiting for work and that kind of thing. And that's where she has this revelation about attention, which is like the hallmark of how she's introducing concepts in this book. So it's just like oh, and then give me
You know,
1 second. I really want to do this quote because it's how she leads the book, and it's by Martin Luther King, which I find appropriate because it's almost that time of year. And it's the quote is, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." And I think it's so important.
it's so powerful. It's so powerful from the original, from when we think of nonviolent resistance. There's two, right? We have Gandhi and we have Martin Luther King Jr. Like the courage it takes to make a stand and not turn to violence, but to really stand in power. And I've got like little spirit bumps. I'm like, whoo, Mufasa.
Yeah, and it also like reminds us that we may have been sold you know, some goods on the whole power dynamic thing, because a lot of times we're assuming that in order to be in power that we have to be subjecting somebody to our power, using it in a mean way even. And so a lot of us don't even deal in the concept of power, even though we're talking about empowering others, which is power. But it's so weird how we run from the actual power idea concept. So I think it's important that we understand that in just like all energy and all like money and all of it, it's not the thing itself that is evil. It's how it is used and how we are and if we are taking authority or like taking people's power and making them less empowered. That's a wholly different concept than to stand in your own sovereignty, authority, and power, you know?
So true. And really, Katya, I read the book a bit back. I've been reviewing the book in preparation for our conversation and the deeper conversation next week. And taking back the cover, exposing just how ingrained it is. The roles that we've been given, whether you identify or have been assigned masculine or feminine, it's without question. We are raised in a bath of expectation based on the gender that the world sees in us. And she beautifully demonstrates that in the story of a little boy and a little girl and the way that they are regarded. Little boys are admired and applauded for the things they do. They be in the world. They are fast. They are smart. They are active. And girls traditionally have been admired and appreciated for the things that they are. What a pretty girl, what a smart girl, what a kind girl, right? And that ability to take action is almost tamed from before we have words, before we can express who we are. Society is defining what is expected from us. And so, even there, I really think pick up the book. We highly recommend, obviously. We really want you to play along with us. But she will grab you from the first chapter, from the first pages of the book, and really help you start questioning so many things that we have just taken for granted because it was given to us, it was assigned to us, and this is how so many of us were raised.
Absolutely. It really does shake up that assumption of just how we are how we're thinking and how we're communicating what we want. Um, I think there's a couple things that stood out to me, which is power is not a feeling, but a dynamic between two people. That's a quote from the book as well, and that idea is like, oh wow, okay, yeah. So it's not like something that I have to take away from somebody else, or if I have it, you don't. This is a moving uh, expression of a thing. It's a dynamic, right? And so it's not so much like for me to control. Power is not necessarily a control thing. It's about how are we able to influence the things that we are hoping to happen within our relationships, within our world. And if without influence, there is no power, is what's one of the things that she kind of brings home for us in a real way that cannot be denied within this book, right? Like those
Right?
are some of my
It's
wake up
time.
calls of like, when you pretend like it doesn't exist, right? When you pretend like power doesn't exist, you're essentially like either being careless with it, in other words, you're not being resourceful with it, or you are being subject to whatever happens at whim, right? So that you hold no influence over what is actually coming to pass within your space. So it is not sovereignty to like deny that there's a power dynamic. It's not spiritual. If it's not sovereign, it's not spiritual, right?
and and
And
Kaja
we're
really.
claiming that it's spiritual to deny power.
Exactly. And we don't need to be giving it away. And it doesn't matter if you are a small woman, if you are soft spoken, if your voice doesn't carry through the crowd. There are some very, very simple changes that you can employ, actions you can take that just shift the power dynamic. And just by shifting the power dynamic, so much change then is possible, and you can reclaim that authority and your sovereignty. So it really is an extraordinary tool to put in your toolkit. I'm a shop girl. I like the toolkit analogy, so you'll hear me go to that one a lot. But Kasia really offers two points of view. I don't know if we want to get into it this week, or Monifa, we want to save it for next week in the book conversation. But simply the definitions of dominance and submission. Do we want to get into that?
I missed it. I'm having some
We're a little bit glitchy. I
some
might
gaps
just
over
roll with
here.
it.
So what are we getting into? The tools, like the
The
exercises?
Do we want to
Yeah.
share Kazuya's definition of
Roll.
dominance and submission in order to give people a little bit of an idea? Or do we want to let the book really illustrate that more completely?
Ah, I see. Yeah, I know. I think we can talk about it because I think in our book club we'll go over like just some of the concepts of the exercises and all that kind of stuff. But the concept itself, I think I really want y'all to at least understand this part before we end the
Here's the
day.
take home. Here's the take home, and I am probably oversimplifying this, so hopefully Monifa will help me kind of dig in, because that's where I love to turn to Monifa's depth of wisdom and experience. She really brings voice to things so beautifully, and so forgive me for simplifying. Dominance is expressed when your attention is out, when your attention is on the thing, on the person, and you are putting your attention out. That is dominance in the situation. And submission in an exchange is when your attention is turned in and you're not putting energy out into the exchange. Your attention is inward, and whatever you are receiving, you are reflecting in that inner world, and you're not engaging. There's no exchange then of power in some of these situations where dominance and submission are expressed in some of the more traditional exchanges.
Yes. Yeah. So more the traditional exchanges, a lot of times we're muddying the water as far as um, not we're concentrating on how we feel, but we're trying to say what's right is how I think of it. And so what happens a lot of times is that our bodies are transmitting one energy and we're saying another. So when we put our attention outward, as she calls it, I'll tell you my version in a second, which is why Susi's saying that. But but her, like what she's saying is that if you're putting your attention out and your awareness, curiosity, and energy is focused on what's going on for the person, then that is when you talk about that person. You talk about what you want them to do without necessarily referring to yourself. Just say what you mean. And then the other version of submission is about really being in touch with what you want and like everything being in connection with what you want without referring to the other person, right? So instead of the clearest you can be are these kind of extremes and dynamic. But like she says, in a healthy conversation, you're passing on those things, right? You talk about your version, and then you may ask a question that's about something that you're thinking, but it's in reference to you, and then the person in the conversation is like, oh wow, yeah, I love that, and this is why I love it, or this is why you know um, what I see in you is. If it's about the other person, then that feels more relatable. You'll find like kind of how these are already playing out in your healthy relationships, right? They're already this exchange of dynamic is already happening. And then if you get like if you're wondering why people get confused when you're talking, it's usually because there's some kind of mishmash that doesn't correlate. The body that's hearing you is getting two different messages, and they may not always hear the one that you're speaking. That's usually why people like will say something very clearly and the other person's like, what? You'll say like, the red dog on the corner, and they'll be, what? The blue dog in Texas? And you're just like, where'd you get blue dog in Texas? You know, but that's what's happening, is that you're actually sending two different messages. Kaja says it this way: you cannot speak louder than your body is talking.
Hmm. Powerful, right? Because
Okay.
I'm sure we all have that experience where we're like, dink dink, is this mic on? Like, is anyone hearing me? Am I not using my words? And it's so important to recognize that lack of alignment in what we're saying versus the way we are expressing it is causing there to be a short circuit in that messaging. So, all of these little awarenesses and insights are so important to reclaiming our power, knowing when we're holding power and when we choose to be submissive in an exchange.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I find that this is again one of those things um, that we kind of have to know about ourselves. If we are working to be an influence and an impact on others, we have to start looking at how are we impactful? Where is our power? How does our power show up? Right? What is when are we in power and when do we transfer it? Are we doing that consciously? That's conscious leadership, right? So yeah, so these are the questions we have to ask ourselves if we're honestly in truth around our own mission and message, right? So one of the things that I think she also points out that is a really important is that if you know what it what would you do with your power. I think a lot of people uh, give their power away because they're like, well, you know what to do with the power. You power it. You do it because you know what to do with your power, right? And you're like, well, I haven't. And then we're over here like, but I think it's important. But I mean, I have an idea. And then we kind of revert because we're not clear. And then she talks about this concept of really knowing your desires, like knowing
Yes.
what you want.
Let us know in the comments.
Because
Do you know what your big desires are? A lot of us don't.
yeah, yeah, and she has amazing exercises around this. It's so vital. As something that I start with my work as well. Like knowing what you want is the because if you don't know what you want, then you don't know what what you want to happen with that power, right? And she said, like, and like she says, it is a growth thing because that first kind of inkling, if we're not paying attention, which is most of us, we're not paying attention to our desires, and then that first little inkling may be a little vague, but we want to be able to like allow it to blossom into a full defined desire and ask. Is how she taught it. Oh, am I Am I up to date? I'm
You're mostly
swirling.
with us. You're mostly with us.
So,
Are you swirling? You're coming through on my end. We'll
I'm
check the recording, but
swirling.
hopefully. But it's so true, and it really struck me as I was reading the book, like getting in touch with that big, bold, audacious ask. If you could ask for anything in the world with no judgment and no repercussions, what would you ask for? And as Monifa said in her work with her clients, that's where they begin. Because if you don't know what you want, then what is your compass set to? And I think as women, a lot of times society, social expectations, parents and well-meaning friends have told us this would be great for you. You would be a natural at this. Why don't you do that? And we like that affirmation. We like those strokes on the ego and we say, "Oh, that's what I'm good at. I can do more of that." That good girl issue that we get ourselves worked into. And sometimes we get so far removed from what we want. And we don't feel like we've ever been given the permission to declare it. And let this be the
Yeah.
space where we can practice using our voices and start to call this down.
Isn't that interesting? She calls it the good girl conditioning, right? It's so interesting when she talks about this dynamic because it's so true. It's the reason why we don't always trust our voices, and it's the underlying dynamic that happens when we think we're being clear and it's not clear. It's this conditioning that says that we have to be these contradictory things, which is a kind of the other reason why I use such extreme visuals in the graphic, is because that is the truth. Like we're kind of pressed between these two things, like they of that kind of virgin, sacred woman, mother idea, and even like the pure child idea, and then that the other extreme is that we also want to be available to have sex at any given moment. Like you should just be ready. You should just, if you're really vital, you'd be wanting you want sex all the time. Like that's how we know. It's like, it was just a little creepy. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I'm just like, really, like, but it is like I find that conflict has come up within my own relationship, even of like this wanting, oh, I want you to believe that I'm good because I never want you to think that I would be unfaithful type of feeling. And then also, like when do I defend my body from my sexuality? So no other person must see my sexuality but you. And when do I, and embrace it because duh, you're my husband. Like the body itself gets confused because we're holding these contradictory ideas, and then when we're trying to speak what we want, they're
We're swirling. We're swirling.
we're swirling.
Raise your hand if you've ever been swirling. And one of the examples that she shares in the book, and I've been enjoying some of the interviews that Kasia has given over the last few years. Her book was published in 2020. We all know that life has changed radically since then. Who knew her timing would be so flawlessly perfect? Um, the 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 Oh, I just got so into what I was saying that I forgot where I was going with it.
I know what you mean.
Right? Oh gosh. But
But
truly, just that. I'm sorry if you've got something. I'll pass the mic. I'll.
no, no, no. I was just trying to see if we were talking about the podcast we were going to refer to, because she just had so many great ideas
Yeah.
about really how what's the name of the podcast on
Oh, we found the most wonderful conversation
wine.
between Kasia and a friend on Unknowing. Brie Larson is a lovely podcast host. I'm a podcast host and I can fangirl. I love the way that she engaged in this conversation. It really was like being able to grab a cup of tea and hang out with some girlfriends and listen to how how Kasia's life kind of led her through her experiences to have this clarity, these questions, and to hold the space for exploration for so many women that she has taken through the academy, which is where she offers her programs. And it really it kind of starts your own wheels turning and invites you to explore where in your life different experiences. I think Bree's question was, what is the map that led you here? Or, where did the map change, right? And it's such a great question to think, like, what are the pivotal moments or the things we were taught as children that held true or that held us back or that shifted and transformed our perspective and have really cued us up to be exactly where we're supposed to be, asking these questions wherever yours are, and inspired to have your big juicy desires that you are getting ready to ask for in the world.
Yeah, well, and it, because it refers to that dynamic, one of the things that happen in what she calls the smush, which is the what happens when your good girl dynamic goes awry, um, is that we essentially are trying to avoid the the friction of resistance, right? Because essentially, and so she talks about how like her normal when she was growing up was not the trajectory that that she was put into by being put into the school, right? And so it kind of made her decide and that she had to find her own way to be and to that she just didn't recognize. One of the things that was innate to her, I think, is that she wasn't going to recognize the limitations that people were expecting of her, right? She wasn't going to say, oh, well, you couldn't go to this great school because your family doesn't have money. You're not going to, so her deciding to push the boundaries of what other people expected from her because of who she was, her status, social dynamic, and family dynamic, and all those things. She was going to do what she wanted to do, and she would figure out a way to do it, which is what made her actually choose these both these paths at the same time while she was going to school. Because she was like, well, this is what I want to know, and this is what I'm going to do to afford the school that I want to go to, right? And so that's how she created that situation for herself where she had that epiphany. And you see how that friction of like being willing to maybe get a negative, maybe get no, well, they obviously don't think I'm going to do it, so I'm going to expect that somebody's going to say no along the way, and I'm also going to expect that I'm not going to listen to that no, and then I will just keep going into what I want to do and find out for myself how it can happen, right? Like, it's a really big invitation for our leaders, I love that.
And so we hope that you will take us up on the invitation. We've been talking about what we found within the book, but it really is only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that is challenging to the paradigms that we've been raised in, that society seems to have created, and in this time of transition globally, in our communities, this is the perfect time to give yourself this insight and wisdom and permission to really reclaim our power. And so we
Yeah.
hope you'll join us next week for the conversation when we come back to it.
Yes, yes. I think it's going to be powerful because we will be able to get to a little bit more in depth into some of the exercises, and so people can walk away with them that they can do more of this on their own. Sometimes you do need that little bit of buffer. I think we're a good buffer. I think we both were raised as good girls, and so we may not be ready for the all out yelling fest that sometimes can happen with these exercises, but we are available for expansion and to know better what is happening and these conflicting emotions and ideas. And so, yeah, so I think it's important, again, to kind of have a sense of where these are showing up in our lives. I really want to make sure that we walk away with at least this part about the good girl dynamic, is um, because she mentions that that girls are not supposed to want, they're supposed to be wanted. Again, this is one of those kind of smush dynamics that happens, that we're like, how do I don't know how to be here because we are taking our cues from society. And I don't know how to speak here, I don't know how to be impactful here. That's kind of the same translation of that. And so, again, if you think you don't have any desires, double check. It's the same thing she talks about anger. Same thing. If you think you don't have any anger, double check. It masquerades as I think of it as the feeling of meh. That's how I think of it. But it just, that's feeling that you don't know what you want, you don't know what you're here for. You don't always care. You're always kind of zapped of energy, and it's not anything that you're doing. It's just this feeling of not energized, and it's a reaction to suppressed anger that we have not yet known or acknowledged and processed. And she talks about how it happens with a lot of people with deep trauma that had to suppress their anger to survive the situation, essentially. So whether that means not smacking people in courtrooms, or or never having the opportunity to like choke out somebody that's harmed a family member. Like these are the things that we would have done naturally as what she talks about as our animal selves. Our animal selves would naturally respond, yeah, a little violently to protect our family member. But we're living in a society where that's not acceptable. So we have to follow that it dictates, but we never process the anger, right? So it's always a great, that's why we're so into creativity. We'll get into this more, I'm sure, on the podcast as well, because it is such a profound way of transmuting, alchemizing those expressions in a way that's safe for everybody in the space, right? And then if it's not safe for everybody's space, there's a thing called not being in other people's spaces. So you can, cars are really great for that. Hiding in a car, going to the park. We'll talk more about that because we are lovers of nature. And like all kinds of ways to just create your own space so you can do what you need to do, right?
Yeah, really. Wherever you're able to show up and begin this work, right? That's really the invitation. And we hope that if you are interested in joining us next week for the conversation, as Monifa said, it's not going to be live streamed. The book club will not be televised because we want to be able to have real and authentic conversations. So check out the link, the Buy Me a Coffee. That's where the stream information will be shared, or the Zoom meeting information will be shared, forgive me. And I also don't want you to feel like I have to read this book this week in order to show up for this conversation. Like, if you're interested in continuing the conversation, come join us. Don't let that be an obstacle. We hope that you will get the book because we think it is life-changing. And don't let, expectations and being a good girl and reading the whole book by the book club meeting get in your way. We want you to come in and join the party.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if all you come with is questions, then that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. Like
We'll
I
tell
think,
you the power
just
of the question
exploring
next
this.
week.
Oh, that's true. Oh my gosh. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I can't wait. So thank you so much.
And if you want to catch us in future episodes, Monifa and I are busy girls, and as I already explained, we are not subscribing to the hustle culture. We are going to be live streaming on the last Thursday of every month. We are going to be coming to you with different topics, maybe some more books. We will be sharing our inspiration, and our mission is to help lift you up, to touch back on those 4 pillars that we were sharing with you. So subscribe to Monifa Harris at YouTube. Her channel is where these live streams are going to be happening, also on Facebook. We want to see you every month. We want to bring inspiration, and be sure to let us know in the comments what you'd like more of, so that can help to guide us as well.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for being at our first Verve and Vision podcast. And can't wait to continue this journey with you all and to this fabulous 2024.
Yes. We're so grateful for all of you. Thanks for joining us in this adventure, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Ta-ta.